are based on management's beliefs as well as assumptions made by and information currently available to management. Audiences are cautioned not to place due reliance on these forward-looking statements in making any investment decisions. Now, let me introduce you to the management participating with us in today's meet. We have with us Mr. Ankuni, who is the Executive Director of Ion Exchange India Limited. He has been associated as a director with the company since 2006 and has been the Executive Director since 2009. Mr. Patni has about 25 years of experience across the functions of finance, IT, R&D, and strategy. Now, without any further delay, let me begin the session. Mr. Patni, welcome to the Valorem CXO Meet. And so let's start. If you could, start with giving us a brief history and background about the company and the journey thus far. Over to you, Mr. Patni.
Good morning to you and to all the viewers, Anuj. Ion Exchange is a pioneer in the field of water treatment in India and is one of the country's premier water and environment management company. It was formed in 1964 under the visionary leadership of Shri G.S. Ranganathan. And at that time, it was a 60% subsidiary of a permitted company of UK. We became a wholly Indian company in 1985 when Permuted divested their holding. Incidentally, we got listed on the BSE in 1977. The company, is one of the few globally who manufactures and offers solutions across the entire spectrum of water and waste treatment technologies, catering to customers starting from individual customer to large industrial entities to government infrastructural entities. And the company manufactures engineered equipments, chemicals, membranes, consumer products targeted at the specific area of water and waste and environment management. It also has one of the largest service networks in the industry. Currently, we have around 7 manufacturing setups. We started manufacturing of resins as well as equipments in 1965. Major expansion of manufacturing base was undertaken in the late 70s and early 80s when we set up the Ankleshwar and Hosur facilities. The manufacturing of chemicals was started in mid-80s. And the consumer product division started operating in around mid-80s to late 80s. And the latest unit which we added was the new RO membrane manufacturing setup at Varna, Goa in 2017. And from the very beginning, our approach was to put together the best of technologies for the benefit of the customer and not compromise on quality. And over the years, we have managed to establish ourselves as a reliable and trustworthy provider of products and solutions. Many of the technologies widely adapted by the industry today were pioneered in India by us several decades ago. Like, for example, the concept of reverse osmosis or seawater desalination or zero liquid discharge. We ventured out internationally in the early 90s when the international division was set up, and we substantially expanded our international presence in the first decade and a half of this century. Now our products are supplied all over the globe, and we have branches or subsidiaries or joint ventures in around 16 countries and distribution networks which cover large part of the major continents. Of course, we are widespread in India with 5 regional offices, and we are present in most of the states and major cities through our branches and channel partners. the journey of more than 5 decades has been quite an interesting one, and it would seem that the times to come would be even more fascinating. Uh, our more than 1700 strong team, I think we remain committed to be leaders in our business, which is so vital to people's lives and the environment.
Great, sir. That's fantastic. Thank you for that. You mentioned that Ion Exchange is one of the leading end-to-end water treatment solutions company in the country. Can you if we can deep dive into this a little bit further? Can you give us a little bit of an overview on each of these business segments of engineering, chemicals and resins, and finally the consumer products businesses? What kind of industries we cater to, what kind of clientele do we have in these segments, and a little bit more details on each of them.
It's a long question and a long
Yeah, I
answer.
know.
Okay.
In
Uh,
as short as and brief as you can.
okay. Uh, okay. So our company addresses the water, effluent, and waste treatment markets, including recycle, zero liquid discharge, and waste to energy. Then we manufacture and supply standard and customized equipments, chemicals, membranes, and consumables, and also provide end-to-end services. That's another way to look at end-to-end. And further, this range of products and solutions is offered to customers ranging from individual residences to rural communities to commercial establishments like buildings, banks, hotels, to industries big and small, to government bodies. So in a lot of ways, end to end, and very few companies globally have this kind of market reach in terms of the types of customers which they handle and the product basket which we carry. Uh, you asked me about an overview of the three business segments. So let me start with the engineering segment. Uh, The scope of the business in the engineering segment includes one or more of designing, engineering, building, commissioning, operating, and servicing, uh, water treatment and waste management plants. It could be one or multiple of these activities. And these could be standard off the shelf pre designed products, or it could be customized projects undertaken on EPC or BOOT basis, depending on the requirements. For example, this would include equipments for demineralizing or seawater desalination or a sewage treatment plant. Such equipments are supplied to large and small industrial customers in virtually all sectors. For example, you would have a NTPC in power, or a JSW in steel, or a Reliance in refineries, or a Kia Motors in auto. Uh, Even in other industries like textile, you have Wellspun, or sugar, you have Dhampur sugar mills, or pharma, you would have something like Cipla or JK paper in paper. So there's a very wide range of industries that we cater to, and obviously we cater to government and municipal bodies as well. So that's the engineering segment. Chemical segment contributes roughly around 60%, 65% of our Q1 profits. That way is a very important segment for us. We manufacture a comprehensive range of resins and chemicals. Resins are manufactured out of Ankleshwar, and chemicals are manufactured largely out of Patincheru near Hyderabad. But we also have satellite operations in Morbi in Gujarat and Bahrain. Uh, Resins are used for applications like softening, demineralization, dealkalization, etc. Water treatment chemicals are used in boiler and cooling water treatment, coagulation, flocculation, or membrane cleaning, and diverse range of applications in the chemical side. But it's not just about water or wastewater treatment. A lot of our chemical products go into non-water applications. For example, resins are used in various non-water applications in pharmaceuticals or in biotechnology or chemicals, foods and beverage. Especially, also we have the specialty chemicals which we manufacture are also used as process chemicals in industries like paper or ceramics or sugar, pharma, uh, and like in case of engineering equipments, chemicals is also supplied to a very wide range of customers, like uh, you know all the virtually all the big names that you would hear in the industry would have been would have transacted with us over the years. In Tata Steel, in Indian Oil, or Aditya Birla Group, or Jupiler, Tipca, and very widespread range of industries and customers. Uh, Consumer product segment, by far the smallest in terms of revenue in our portfolio. Customers, you cater to commercial customers like maybe banks and offices, or are you being able to hear me?
Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Patni. I think it was a little patchy for a second, but go ahead. I can hear you now.
Right.
You're talking about the consumer products.
Uh, right. So I was saying that the consumer products are supplied to residences and commercial establishments, or institutions like hotels, or hospitals, or communities like housing complexes and rural markets. So that's the spread of the consumer product business. The products are marketed under the brand Zero B, and many of us. I still get people who remember the first product that we launched, which is the municipal tap attachment, which Ion Exchange had put in, and that's a good more than 30 years back, and it still stands in the memory of the people. It was quite a revolutionary product. Uh, and the current product line would include things like RO purifiers, which incidentally we pioneered in the country, and we also do non-electric purifiers, chillers, automatic softeners, and arsenic and fluoride removers.
Mr. Patni, Mr. Patni, I think uh, we can't hear you. Ankushi, we couldn't hear you for a second or so. I think it got a little patchy. Are you able to hear me now? Sorry, you're on mute. If you could just unmute. I think we lost you for a couple seconds out there.
I can hear you. Are
Yeah,
you being able to hear me?
yeah, I can hear you now fine. I think it came and went. So hopefully we won't have more of that. But let's continue. So that was definitely very elaborate and interesting. You covered the entire gamut as I would have preferred. Moving on, if we could. Talk about the industry a little bit. Could you, enlighten our viewers about the broader water management industry, not only in India and globally? What could be the approximate size of this industry? Who are the major competitors for the company, not only in India but globally? And how does Ion Exchange stand out in this space? So a little bit on the industry, please.
Right. This is
Again, a very broad question, and again, probably I'm sure you could spend a couple of days with us on this, but yeah, as brief as
okay.
possible.
Let me give you some context also to explaining about our industry. Water and environment management is rapidly becoming one of the areas of topmost priority for regulators and governments across the globe. Uh, you would have heard about severe reduction in water tables in many urban centers and severe depletion of water resources in urban and industrial centers across the globe, and also in India. The limited resources of fresh water, they have to be preserved, and their usage has to be prioritized. Uh, as we would look at it as drinking water being, one of the very important usage of fresh water. But it is just one of the usage. In fact, domestic usage is one of the smallest components of freshwater usage, and industry contributes somewhere around 20 to 40% of the usage, and remaining, of course, goes to agriculture. And depending upon the stage of the development of the country, the usage of the industry is higher. With every passing day, the freshwater resources are becoming more and more stressed. Increasing population, increasing industrialization, increasing urbanization, they're all contributing to it. And India is incidentally one of the most severely water stressed nations. We are really looking at a big issue becoming out of water in the coming years. So there's an urgent need to minimize water wastage, to augment alternative water resources, to improve efficiency of water usage, reuse, recycle water, and also ensure that what we discharge as effluent or sewage, they are all duly treated. So sustainable and efficient management of water and the environment. That is the need of the hour, and that's what our industry is all about. So water and wastewater will see very substantial investments by the government and private sector alike, to cover the deficit in the infrastructure and also for increased compliance. It isn't surprising, therefore, that the industry is getting a lot of attention, and it's poised to create an increased impact on human lives and the environment. Uh, you know, and you may not realize the impact of water industries. Uh, Without water, many of the companies and the products that they provide would fail to exist. It's almost a invisible factor behind the screens. Water use is an essential part of most manufacturing and production processes. Raw water entering an industrial plant often needs treatments to meet the right quality and specifications. Meanwhile, the used water, which is thrown out, also needs to, fit the specifications for disposal. And so, therefore, water is an essential ingredient in virtually all products. Depending on the industry and the application and the raw water quality in a region, different types of and levels of technologies are required. So it's not one solution or one product fits all. Every single time that you go into a large scale implementation, the you have to study very carefully what the input raw water quality is, what is the exact quality which is required by the particular customer, what are the treatment criteria, and what is the discharge norms. So everything needs to be factored in to create the right solution. And there's a host of technologies and very advanced technologies which are utilized in order to achieve all this. For example, you would know that in electronics manufacturing, when you are manufacturing the circuit boards, that needs to be you need to use absolutely ultra pure water. Even the slightest amount of impurities can cause the product to malfunction. So very high precision equipments utilized there. Similarly, for medical and pharmaceutical industry, you will understand that require very high purity of water. Also, large number of industries, they use boilers and cooling towers where water treatment is crucial to ensure efficiency and maximize the life of the boiler and the system life. Also to reduce maintenance costs and maintain the levels of operational efficiency. There are other industries like textile or paper, which use high quantities of water uh, and to ensure optimum product quality. Even though you wouldn't see, in textiles or in paper, the water is a part of the final product. But it's a very important part of the entire process of manufacturing these products. So there too, quality of water needs to be very carefully controlled, and effluent water needs extensive treatment. In fact, wastewater from the textile dyeing and treatment, if left untreated, would contain a cocktail of chemicals like lead or phthalates or organochlorines and many other chemicals that, if they're disposed into water bodies, they will ultimately find their way into the plants and animals and the our own food chain, and can lead to severe problems and diseases apart from the damage to the environment. Uh, so you look across industries and you see that the importance of water and the water and wastewater treatment is really phenomenal. And depending on the country and region, you would have regulations, but increasing amount of awareness about how it can also make a commercial impact and benefit commercially is ensuring that the industry is now our industry is now getting its due recognition and importance. Uh, so, a rather long overview of the context of our industry. Needless
That
to say,
was
we are proud of it.
no, absolutely. So that was definitely very interesting. Just in terms of the market size, any comments on that? What is the opportunity size in India? Is there a way to, calculate that?
Okay. The market size, when you talk about the global market sizes or the market size in India, there are various ways to look at it, and sometimes different components of the entire system get included when you calculate market size. There could be a project which is largely civil, and the water treatment aspect of it may be relatively small, but that could get included in the market size calculation. And so therefore there's reasonable amount of discrepancy when you start talking market share, market size numbers on a global or an Indian context. But let me still try and give you some kind of a perspective. The overall size of the industry would be somewhere in rupee terms somewhere around you know, the engineering part of it would be around 4.5 lakh crores. That's the global size, and
Wow.
obviously large part of it is in the municipal sector. Industrial would probably be around one third of this, and if you look at India on a yearly basis, the number would be roughly around 40,000 crores.
Wow.
Uh,
Okay.
and industrial market would be somewhere in the region of 8 to 10,000 crores. That's the kind of number that you would associate with the
Okay.
Indian industrial market space.
Great, sir. Thank you for that. Let's move on to the engineering segment. So we have an outstanding order book of about 1,250 crores, along with a bid book of about 4,000 crores. This is something that we gave out in the last quarterly earnings call. Can you shed some more details on what are the kind of large projects that we are working on, as well as the industries that we are catering to? What is this mix in our order book today? Also maybe the mix between international versus domestic, government versus private, and also on the bid book pipeline, what are the kind of orders that we are bidding for? What do you have confidence on winning these? Something on the orders.
Okay. Two of the largest orders which we are executing are from the National Water Supply and Drainage Board of Sri Lanka, and the Kane Oil and Gas Division of Vedanta. The Sri Lankan project is worth about $194 million, and that involves treatment, storage, and transmission of drinking water, including the intake and storage in southern Sri Lanka. The Vedanta order is an EPC contract worth about 438 crores. This is for a sulfate removal plant required for onshore oil well drilling setup in Barmer, Rajasthan. So typically, you asked about the industries and all that sector. So typically, the larger sized orders tend to come from the core sector, like power, steel, oil and refinery, etc. The medium sector like textile or paper, food and beverage, pharmaceutical, etc., they tend to give slightly smaller sized orders. While the number of orders, in terms of the quantum of orders, that is certainly larger as you decrease the sizes of the orders. The highest number of orders flows from the smaller sized entities, and this is spread across sectors. Uh, you know, uh, like for example, the medium is, as I said, textile, paper, food, beverage, etc. The smaller size also would have components coming in from this sector, but the smaller size industries. Uh, the split between international and domestic in the order book is roughly around 25-75, just a rough cut number.
So
This is
75 international,
75 domestic.
75
And
domestic.
I'm excluding Sri Lanka from the split.
Okay. Okay.
And the split between government and private is roughly 30-70. When I say government, it includes the PSU orders that we have. The bid book, as you said, it's 4,000 crores. This excludes the very large opportunities which we are pursuing, so that not to skew the entire number. As such, now our bid book is quite varied, and again, the split between domestic and international will be something like 25-75. In terms of size of the potential contracts, probably around 60% would be larger size, around 30% would be medium sized, and around 10% would be the smaller sized one. And that's because the gestation period of the smaller orders is small. So there's a lot of churn in that part of the bid book. Our winning rate is roughly around 20%.
Okay. Great, sir. Thank you. Let's move on to the chemical segment. So this segment has, definitely been one of the drivers for the, exceptional profitable, your growth and your profitability. It also commands a better margins. So can you, maybe elaborate for us in layman terms, what are the, the different kinds of chemicals that we are making out here? You already mentioned a little bit on this earlier, but, if we could, just talk about the market opportunity, the kind of, again, areas we are catering to, and especially, the chemical sector in recent times has seen a lot of attention in India, especially considering the whole China plus one strategy. So, how are we positioned to take advantage of this? Are we seeing any, uptick in this segment, even in recent times? Any thoughts on that?
Putting it in layman's terms is putting your step in a quagmire, because a lot of time the layman is far more aware than you would give him credit for.
True.
Nevertheless, I'll still try to address the question. Very large variety of chemicals can be applied for water treatment. So the product basket that we've got is very, very wide. They are used in boiling and cooler water treatments, things like reduction in corrosion or reduction in scaling, as biocides for coagulation, flocculation, for membrane cleaning, for disinfection, for pH conditioning, all kinds of stuff. For larger sites, we offer packaged treatment programs, which are tailor-made to suit the customer needs. Uh, and Also, our R&D lab can customize the chemicals to address unique or specialized customer requirements. Uh, in general, we tend to avoid commodity chemicals, where it is largely about volume and low price. And we generally strive to concentrate on more value-added products. Therefore, you would see that only a small portion of our revenue in the chemical segment would have the lower margins, and a larger proportion would carry better margins. Uh, and the research and development effort is an ongoing exercise, so that we continuously update and upgrade our product lines and the product mix. Um, to explain the entire range of products in simple terms would take very long. So let me give you just a couple of examples. Hopefully that would throw some light. uh, let's say boiling water treatment. It's carried out in industrial plants, and among other things, because of the problem caused by scale formation and corrosion within the system. And the boilers, if you know that they rely on high pressure and steam, the quality of water which is entering the boiler has to be very precise and very high quality. Uh, as also, within the boiler, you need to manage the water condition. So such corrosion and scaling, if it happens, it can cause increased energy costs, and a much decreased efficiency, and a shorter life of the boiler. At worst, it could be catastrophic and could cause a lot of damage to machinery and even loss of life. So our boiler water treatment chemicals would be, like scale and corrosion controllers, or oxygen scavengers, or alkalinity builders. They are used to control these issues, within the boiler environment. Now, cooling water processes also suffer from scale formation and corrosion, but they also, become breeding grounds for harmful bacteria such as Legionella, which can cause the Legionella disease, and which can be very fatal. Uh, in addition to the other issues to be dealt with regarding corrosion and scaling, you also need to take care of uh, getting rid of these bacteria and other pathogens which might be there. So we use variety of chemicals to address all the issues, like we'll be using organic and inorganic corrosion inhibitors, we'll be using dispersants, we'll be using biocides to control this. And ultimately what this would do is it will increase the efficiency of the cooling tower, and would reduce wastage of energy, chemicals, and water. So that's these two, big usage of water treatment chemicals. So apart from water and waste treatment applications, the non-water applications, which include those in, let's say, fuel and fireside additives to improve combustion characteristics, or in sugar industry as sugar enhancers or color precipitators, in paper for making it more water resistant, or increasing the strength, or de-inking the recycled paper. In refineries, we use it for improving the fuel lubricity, or diesel stabilizers. Likewise, several applications in ceramics, pharma, alumina, mining, and other sectors. Uh, the you asked about what's the market looking like, and overall dimension of the future. I think the market opportunity for chemicals is exciting. We continue to improve our product mix, and some of the newer product lines are showing very good promise. uh, Several initiatives are underway to improve our market share in the targeted domestic markets. You mentioned China plus strategy, and that may act as a short-term catalyst in some ways as buyers across the globe try to broad base their vendor base, and we are very well positioned to use this to our advantage. But in addition and in spite of it, our chemicals are also gaining acceptance in the international markets, and quite a bit. And we now run large scale chemical treatment programs with several customers globally. We have thus accelerated our outreach in the international markets. Uh, Towards this end, we are also exploring options of increasing our satellite manufacturing operations into more geographies. This will improve localization, it will reduce costs and cycle times. Uh, Apart from running treatment programs and going directly at customer sites, we are also supplying products directly to customers and to OEMs as well as to distributors. And we are receiving tremendous response to all these initiatives. So the overall prospect for the chemical business looks good.
Great, sir. I think most people don't think about ion exchange. They think about ion exchange in the engineering segment, but this chemical segment, I think, gets underplayed, which is definitely one of our larger segments. Continuing on that aspect, if you could talk a little bit about the resins that we manufacture. What are the different kinds? Where are they used? What is the market size opportunity out here? Do we export these? Since we are running at maximum utilization at Ankleshwar, what is our expansion plans here?
We manufacture a comprehensive range of resins. Ion exchange resins are used for many water treatment applications. Of these applications, in terms of volumes of resins used, water softening and demineralizing, these are the most significant. As the variety of uses for purified water has increased, so has the need to soften and demineralize water. I told you about the number of industries, the number of ways in which water is used in various industries. But there are several other applications of resins, and I'll just name a few, like removal of color or organics from water. It is used in heavy metal, like uranium, recovery of those from water and non-water streams. For oil removal from steam condensate in refineries, or removal of specific contaminants like arsenic or fluoride from water. It's used as catalysts for organic reactions, nutrient recovery, pharmaceutical APIs, decolorization. So very broad range of applications that the resins have. And in simplistic terms, the liquid to be treated is passed to the resins in a controlled manner to achieve the plant changes in the characteristic of the outcoming liquid. So that's broadly how the resin is applied. The market size in India is roughly around 300 crores, and we have roughly 45% market share in India. And we export a very large part of our production to geographies like USA, Canada, Europe, and also several other countries in the Far East like Japan and Korea, Southeast Asia, Middle East, and Africa. The market acceptance for our products is great, and demand for our products is showing very good trends. We are quite hopeful of good growth in export of resins too. You would know that we expanded our capacity. You asked about, you said our capacity utilization in Ankleshwar and all that. So we expanded our resin capacity, including capacities for the US FDA facility recently. And post expansion, our utilization is now roughly around 60%.
Okay.
But even so, we expect that once the global and the Indian economic scenario situation comes to more normal levels, we will need to go ahead with a greenfield expansion of resin capacities. So that should also happen soon.
Okay, great. So lastly, on the consumer business, in your opening statement, you mentioned that we are working on, other markets like rural. Can you elaborate on this more? And, what is the strategy for this segment for us?
Uh, so in the rural markets, communities face crisis of unsafe drinking water, uh, and what we are committed to doing is solving that problem of surface and groundwater pollution for them by removing contaminants like fluoride or arsenic or iron or nitrate or even uranium. That can be very harmful when ingested. Uh, so we have products which go as hand pump attachments, which specifically take care of these contaminants. So depending upon where we are installing it, we customize the product so that we are able to tackle the specific impurities. A lot of surface water treatment equipments which we are supplying. We are also supplying, what's called a disaster management unit, which is a very compact unit which can be transported to areas which may not have electricity, which are very difficult to reach, and certainly in terms of an emergency, these come as a big boon. So a lot of these kinds of products which in a market which is relatively unaddressed and where our technology can be put to very good use.
Great, sir. Thanks, sir. So before I take questions from the participants, I know there's a lot of them in queue already. One final question on the financials. So our 3-year CAGR, on the top line has been about 10 to 15%. Our bottom line, on the other hand, has grown about 50% over the last 3 years. Was this by design? And if so, what is the outlook for the future growth? Let's say over the next 3 to 5 years. There is always this concern, and a few of them have always posted this, and questions have come to you as well as me about what happens after Sri Lanka. What will drive the growth of the company? So if you could address that as well.
Right. See, focus on profitability is certainly by design. Uh, Hence our resolve to accelerate the growth of the chemical segment, which, as you know, is the largest profit contributor. It is not that we are averse to growth in the other segments. And obviously, we want all the segments to grow, but we are not chasing top line at the cost of the overall health of the balance sheet. Therefore, we practice controlled risk taking, and you could say that we are somewhat conservative. But I would like to think that we are only conservative to the extent of protecting the balance sheet, and there is no dearth of willingness to improve top line growth. Uh, as I mentioned earlier, we are in discussion to convert several very large engineering opportunities which fit in our criteria, but these have long gestation periods, and exact timelines of conversion into orders is a bit unpredictable. Hopefully, we would be able to announce something in the near future. Uh, uh, Per se, growth would eventually be visible from these types of contracts also. Growth in the relatively smaller sized engineering opportunities should pick up in the coming months. Hopefully, we will have no further surprises or adverse economic surprises. The flow of opportunities in some of the international markets has already improved, and we are expecting good order flows from there. Uh, More importantly, I think the outlook on chemical business seems to be good. And we certainly hope that as the situation normalizes, the bottom line growth contributed by the chemical segment will improve. Uh, as mentioned before, we will be adding greenfield capacities in the chemical segment, which we hope will give further fillip to the growth. Uh, I'm quite hopeful that over a 3 to 5 year period, we would be able to show significant multiplication in both the top line and bottom line contribution by all segments.
Fantastic, sir. Thank you, sir. Let's move on to questions from the participants. Again, everyone, there is a Q&A button that you can use. We are short of time. Unfortunately, the opening questions has taken a bit of time. So I'm going to, and again, just for everyone, please refrain from asking questions that are already asked in the earnings con calls and, micro questions. Let's keep it broad-based today because of the lack of time. So first question I'm going to take is from Mr. Ajay Sharma. Do clients usually go with the lowest cost water treatment system provider, or would clients pay more for better quality? How does the Ion Exchange position themselves on the cost quality spectrum? If you could explain us, what do clients basically look at in terms of choosing?
Uh, you have clients across the spectrum of cost and quality consciousness. Uh, there would be lots of clients, especially where water becomes a part of the final product or is very critical to the final product quality. The clients tend to be much more conscious about the quality, and they would have uh, a way to filter out competitors who would not be able to provide them the requisite quality. Uh, there would be others where, for reasons of them playing in very cost competitive markets, or where quality is not the most paramount, and where decisions do get tend to be taken on price criteria alone. We normally do not like to compete in those markets. We prefer to compete in markets where the clients would have more weightage given to technology, to quality of the products, and obviously we are competitive on our prices, but we don't want to play in a market which is run solely by the price criteria.
Great, sir. So a follow-up from him is also, what percentage of customers are repeat customers in the engineering segment? Without going into specifics, if you could broadly explain, do customers come back to us?
Of course, we have quite a large number of customers who would come back to us year after year, and for uh, every single expansion or new projects which they would have. Uh, it's not that everybody would come back, but there would be a very significant percentage which will come back.
Great, sir. Let's move on to the next question from Mr. Suhas Naik. Could you please share the key strengths of the company and how important is the role of R&D in this industry? Also, a follow-up is, are technologies patented? And if so, do we have any patents?
Uh, I think R&D plays a very important role. We have a very strong setup in R&D. I had mentioned during your earlier questions that a lot of innovation goes every year into keeping our product line refreshed, and we keep upgrading and updating the portfolio, and not just the just improving the products, but also adding new products where required, and shedding products where we feel that the time for the product has come. Uh, the the overall uh, importance of technology in the industry cannot be underplayed.
Okay, sir. Let's take the next question from Mr. Vineet Jain. He's asking, how do you see competition from the unorganized sector? Smaller companies like, he gives a name like Penar. Are these a threat to us?
Competition would always come from the unorganized sector, and some of these players from the relatively unorganized sector would sometime in the future climb up into the organized market, and that's a healthy thing for the entire industry. But in general, I would say that we do not play a lot in that segment of the market where unorganized players affect us in a very big way. Uh, Nonetheless, we are quite conscious of all developments in industry, even if it is coming from a relatively unorganized place. And in terms of our ability to innovate and metamorphosize to tackle any innovations which come even from the unorganized sector, or price competitiveness which we need to enhance in order to compete in certain segments, we are always up to speed.
Okay. Along those lines, I'll take a question from Mr. Dhiman Shah. What are the competitive advantages over other organized competitors like Viola, Vabag, etc.? If you could comment on that.
See, one of the things which I stated in the very beginning was that uh, we are an end-to-end solution provider. Very few companies globally would have the ability to offer the entire suite, which is chemicals and resins and membranes as well as equipments, and who play across the spectrum of product lines. Uh, each one of the players that you mentioned has his own strengths, uh, and it would not be fair to say that we can run them down on in all aspects and in every place. But we do like to pride ourselves in saying that we get a lot of trust from our customers. You had asked an earlier question regarding repeat customers, so we get a lot of repeat customers. Uh, our ability to offer uh, very high quality solutions, good engineering, and also follow it up with services. Why we have one of the largest service networks in the industry, and the consumable support and technical support. So these are one of few of the very crucial advantages that we carry, and it plays us in good stead, both nationally and internationally.
Great, sir. Let me take the next question from Sagar Naik. So, within the engineering segment, how much of the demand would be dependent on new capex, and how much would be based on replacement demand? In the current scenario, since companies would be going slow or delaying capex, do we see this impacting the growth of this segment in the near to medium term?
See, large portion of the engineering business comes from new capex, uh, because by very nature of that EPC driven business, uh, unless the uh, industry goes in for investments in greenfield or brownfield projects, they will not really require to set up new water treatment plants. Uh, However, there is a lot of demand which comes because of the need for compliance, especially with respect to the effluents uh, uh, given out by the industry or sewage treatment plants set up by other entities. So that's not necessarily a brownfield or a greenfield project for them, but it's still a capex. Uh, as far as the chemical piece of the business is concerned, that's more of a consumable and a running OPEX kind of a cost. And a very small portion of that would be associated with a CAPEX.
Okay. Along those lines, I think Amit Doshi asks, what could be the growth triggers for the chemical segment? Since there is greenfield expansion is under consideration, what would be the quantum expansion, expected timelines, etc. Anything on that?
Uh, as I mentioned that we would be considering those expansions once the situation becomes a little bit normal, and we see the visibility in the orders improving. So I am not necessarily wanting to project an exact timeline, but it should happen shortly, and I would expect that that project should get initiated within a year's time. The capex involved in that case would be quite large, and would certainly be above 100 crores number. and the capacity expansions, which also will also be very significant as a
Okay.
percentage.
His first question was, what are the growth triggers for this chemical segment? Any comments on that? I mean, you've already mentioned a bit, but any thoughts on that?
So let me put it in points that we are looking at substantial expansion of our market presence with respect to these chemicals in the international market. We are looking at improving the product mix and increasing products which have greater demands or which are seeing a lot of volume in the Indian and international market. And there are a lot of initiatives in place to further increase our market share within the domestic setup. Uh, all these taken along with a proposed capacity expansion, both modular and greenfield, that should give us a very good growth in future.
Sure, sir. Let me take the next question from Sagar Patil. Are you focusing on organic growth opportunities alone, or inorganic growth opportunities are also being explored?
We are not averse to looking at inorganic growth triggers, and we are always on the lookout for uh, a partner or an opportunity, both in India and abroad.
Okay. Next question I'll take from is Pratik Kothari. How big is the O&M services business in the engineering? If you could shed a little light on that. And also, do we get O&M orders only from projects executed by us, or do we do it for others too? Any thoughts on O&M?
Uh, the service setup uh, would be quite substantial, and the overall O&M business should be in the region of around 120 crores or thereabouts. Uh, but in terms of whether we take in projects from or O&M business from uh, plants supplied by others, yes, certainly. A lot of customers do come back to us asking us to maintain or operate equipments which have otherwise been supplied by others.
Okay. There's another follow-up on just the O&M piece. What kind of growth can we, build in O&M in the medium to long term? Is this a good business for us? Is it high margins, and can we grow this? I mean, can this be a substantial piece?
Uh, it is. It's a decent margin business, and certainly has a lot of growth potential. Uh, the newer uh, product or the projects which get executed and newer sites which come up certainly require somebody to take care of it. And a lot of industries now look for outsourcing the piece of maintenance and operating. It gives them better quality and better assurances. So we expect this business to do well in future.
Okay. We have run out of time, sir. If you don't
Yes.
mind, can I take a couple more questions?
One last one, Anuj.
Okay, sure, sir. I think the last question, I think there's a lot of questions. I don't know how to answer this, but let me take this one because this has been a little bit, and it was a pre-requested question. There was something to do with Lanxess, selling its RO membranes business to French group Suez. Lanxess was going to focus on ion exchange resins business for high-end applications. How is the ion exchange position going forward, and what should be the investor? Could you talk about this Lanxess project and a little bit detail into that?
Lanxess is a global major in terms of the resin business, and it had also ventured out into the RO membrane business, which it sold out to Suez, I think, in the month of July or so, and that does not really change the dynamics in terms of India significantly. We were competing with all global majors in the membrane market as well as in the resin market even before, not just in India and internationally. So these changes in the global competitive scenario is a part and parcel of what the industry is. Our resins as well as membranes, new setup, uh, both of them are doing excellent, both in the domestic and international market. And we certainly feel that both of these businesses will uh, do even better as times improve and should be contributing significantly to our bottom line.
Sure, sir. One last question along those lines is, going forward, how would you see our segmental mix will be? Is it going to continue staying the same? Do you expect, chemicals to suddenly become 50% of your business? Any thoughts on that as the last question?
Okay. See, as far as the engineering business is concerned, by the virtue of the fact that it comes in lumps, and the size of individual contracts could be pretty large. So it's very difficult to say that on an overall volume basis, that business will start to go down, and it's dependent on how the flow of orders happen. But one thing is for sure that we will keep gunning for improving our chemical share uh, in absolute terms, and if that translates into an improvement in its percentage share of the total business, then so be it, because it's certainly one of the largest profit contributors, and we are quite aggressively focusing on improving the overall or accelerating the growth in that segment.
That's fantastic, sir. Thank you so much for your time. Maybe any last closing comments to our viewers before you go?
No, I think it was fantastic to have this session today with you, Anuj. A nice round of questions, and it's been a pleasure to address each and every one of you who's been listening. I'm sorry if I've not been able to address all questions. We have run out of time, but I do hope we will have opportunity to answer many of those questions in coming times.
Sure.
Thank you
And
very
just
much.
to our viewers whose questions have not been answered, we will reach out to you, or you can reach out to us. Most of the questions we do have answers to, and I've tried to keep questions on a broader level today. So forgive us for the lack of time. Thank you everyone for participating. Thank you, Mr. Patni, for the opportunity and participating with us today.
Thank you so much, Anuj.
Thank you, sir.